Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we shall be analyzing the Hindu newspaper dated 10th of February 2019 of the New Delhi edition. Now, today's discussion has been divided into two parts, wherein one part of the discussion shall be done by me, whereas the other part of the discussion shall be done by my colleague, Mr. Naveed Akhtar. Now, the topics to be discussed today has been presented on your screen. Timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. Let us begin our today's discussion. Now, the first article appears on page number 14. The title of the article is Why Are Quakes Happening at Palghar? This particular article shall be important from the perspective of both prelims as well as mains. In the mains, it shall be part of GS paper 1 as well as GS paper 3. In GS paper 1, it shall be part of the important geophysical phenomena such as earthquakes, whereas in GS paper 3, it shall be part of the disaster and disaster management. And an expected UPSC mains question from this particular article could be discuss the possible causes of the earthquake swarms in the peninsular India and also highlight the disaster preparedness measures to be undertaken by the government. Before analyzing this particular article, let us first look into its background. The Palghar district in Maharashtra has witnessed a series of low intensity earthquakes, and these low intensity earthquakes are referred to as the earthquake swarms. Now, why this becomes important is because normally the earthquakes are observed at the boundaries of the plates. Now, as you all know, the surface of the earth has been divided into rigid lithospheric plates. Now, some of these major plates are the Eurasian plate, the Indo-Australian plate, the North American plate, the South American plate, etc. And these plates are in relative motion to each other. Now, due to the relative motion of these plates, there is a constant interaction between these plates. Now, based upon the interaction which is taking place among these plates, they are called by different names. For example, if the plates are moving towards each other, such a boundary is referred to as the convergent plate boundary. Similarly, if the plates are moving away from each other, they are referred to as the divergent plate boundary. On the other hand, if the plates slide past each other, such a boundary is referred to as the transform boundary. Now, one example of the convergent plate boundary is the nature of interaction between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. Now, you can see in this particular diagram that the Indian plate is moving towards the Eurasian plate, and such a boundary is referred to as the convergent plate boundary. And due to the convergence of Indian plate with the Eurasian plate, the Himalayas have got formed. Similarly, the example of a divergent plate boundary could be the mid-Atlantic ridge. Now, you can see in this particular diagram, the North American plate is moving away from the Eurasian plate, and such a plate interaction has led to the formation of the mid-Atlantic ridge. Similarly, an example of a transform boundary could be the San Andreas fault in US. Now, you can see this particular fault in this particular diagram here, where the plates are sliding past each other. So, if you look at the major earthquakes of the world, most of the earthquakes are related to the plate interactions which are taking place across the world. So, whenever the plates move in relation to each other, such a movement leads to release of the seismic pressure which is built up within the earth's surface, and this leads to the earthquakes. So, if you look at the Himalayan region in India, it is normally prone to earthquakes because of the plate interaction which is taking place between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. On the other hand, if one looks at the peninsular block is considered to be seismically stable. This is because the peninsular block is usually not prone to the earthquakes. So the major earthquakes in India normally take place in the Himalayan region, whereas the peninsular block has so far remained seismically stable. However, it is to be noted that the peninsular block has so far not remained completely immune from the earthquakes. Now, this can be seen in the fact that the Latur district in Maharashtra as well as Koyna have witnessed earthquakes in the past. And the reasons for the earthquakes in Latur and Koyna can be attributed to the intraplate tectonics. Now, what has happened in the Palghar district in Maharashtra is that since November 2018, this particular district has witnessed a series of low intensity earthquakes. And this has baffled the seismologists because the Palghar district is part of the peninsular block which is considered to be seismically stable. Hence, as part of this video analysis, let us understand as to what exactly are the earthquake swarms, how these earthquake swarms are different from the normal earthquakes, why the earthquake swarms in the peninsular block is a cause of concern, And lastly, what disaster preparedness measures should the government take in order to handle this particular problem? Let us start our analysis with the understanding of the earthquake swarms. The earthquake swarms are considered to be the low intensity earthquakes which normally occur in a localized region over a period of time which can range from days, weeks, or even months. And this happens due to the release of seismic energy in small amounts. And normally it is observed that the earthquake swarms may be accompanied by even sound emissions as well. More importantly, it is not the first time that the Palghar district in peninsular India has been facing the earthquake swarms. Even before the Palghar districts, other places in peninsular India have also witnessed the earthquake swarms. For instance, in August last year, a place in Maharashtra known as Amravati had also witnessed the earthquake swarms. So this clearly shows that it is not the first time that the peninsular India has witnessed the earthquake swarms. Let us now understand as to how the earthquake swarms are different from the normal earthquakes. Now, with respect to normal earthquakes, it is commonly observed that the normal earthquakes pass through multiple phases as the time elapses. For example, a place may initially receive a foreshock before the main shock, and the main shock is in turn followed by the aftershock, wherein both foreshocks as well as the aftershock happen to be of low intensity. However, the main shock happens to be of high intensity. Now you can understand this by looking at this particular diagram. So as you can see here, as the time elapses, the normal earthquakes pass through multiple phases, these being the foreshock, the main shock, and the aftershock. And you can clearly see here, both foreshocks as well as the aftershocks happen to be of low magnitude. On the other hand, the main shock is of the higher magnitude. However, if you look at the earthquake swarms, as the time elapses, the magnitude of the earthquake swarms remains almost same, which clearly shows that there is no distinct main shock in the earthquake swarms. And since the earthquake swarms are of low intensity, they are considered to be harmless. Let us now understand as to what are the probable causes for the earthquake swarms. As discussed before, even before the Palghar district, even the Amravati district of Maharashtra had also witnessed the earthquake swarms. Hence, based upon a detailed and scientific investigation of the causes of earthquake swarms in the Amravati district, the seismologists came to a conclusion that the earthquake swarms of the Amravati district were due to the hydroseismicity. Now, what exactly is this hydroseismicity? Now, whenever an area receives a high amount of rainfall, in such cases, the rainwater enters into the fractures formed within the rock system. And this entry of water into the rock fractures leads to increase in the pressure of the rock systems. And because of this, the seismic pressure builds up beneath the earth's crust. And such seismic pressure may get released in small amounts, leading to the earthquake swarms. Now, for example, according to the Journal of the Geological Society of India, for every 10-meter increase in the groundwater level, the pressure within the rock system may increase by up to 1 bar. So, since the hydroseismicity is related to the monsoonal rainfall in India, normally the earthquake swarms start in the month of June and end in December. This is because from the month of June to the month of December, usually the peninsular India receives rainfall, and ultimately from the month of December, the winter sets in the peninsular India, because of which normally the earthquake swarms are not observed beyond the month of December. But what has happened in the Palghar district of Maharashtra is that the earthquake swarms have continued even beyond December, and they have continued even in the month of February as well. Now, because of this particular reason, some of the seismologists believe that hydroseismicity may not be the cause of reason for the earthquake swarms in the Palghar district. Now, apart from the hydroseismicity, another possible cause for the earthquake swarms could be the geological faults. Now, the faults are essentially the cracks in the earth's crust which are formed due to the displacement of the rocks. And normally, it is observed that whenever cracks are formed on the earth's crust, there's a tendency of the rock systems to get displaced. Such a displacement of the rock systems can actually lead to the earthquake swarms. So, if one looks at the Konkan coast of India, this particular coast has plenty of geological faults. And some of the seismologists believe that some of these faults may have been responsible for the earthquake swarms of the Palghar district. However, it is to be noted that the seismologists are presently examining the nature of fault which has been responsible for the present swarm activity in the Palghar district. As discussed, the earthquake swarms are of low intensity and are usually harmless. However, if you look at the major earthquakes in the peninsular India, such as the earthquake in the Latur district of Maharashtra, this particular earthquake was preceded by a series of earthquake swarms, which got finally culminated into a main shock in the Latur district. Hence, based upon our experience in the Latur district, there is a possibility that the earthquake swarms of the Palghar district may also lead to a main shock in future. And hence, accordingly, we need to be prepared for this probable disaster in future. Here it is to be noted that with respect to disaster management, the global community, including India, is following the Sendai framework for the disaster risk reduction. This particular framework emphasizes on disaster preparedness in order to reduce the loss of lives and livelihood which may take place due to the disasters. So, if you look at the Palghar district of Maharashtra, it is located in Zone 3 according to the seismic hazard map prepared by the Government of India. So, since this particular district is in Zone 3, the buildings in this particular district have to be constructed in such a manner that they have to withstand an earthquake intensity of more than 5.5. And accordingly, the government has to move the people out of the Kacha homes into a temporary location. And in the long term, the government has to focus on construction of a strong and durable houses which should be able to withstand an earthquake intensity of 5.5 and above. Further, the government can also carry out an audit of the buildings in order to ensure that they are able to withstand the earthquakes of higher intensity. So these are some of the disaster preparedness measures which the government can take in order to deal with this particular problem. So these are some of the important aspects which one must know with respect to this particular article. Now based upon a video analysis, you can try writing answer to this expected UPSC mains question. With this, let us now move to the next article. Now the next article appears in the form of an image on page number 8. The title of this particular article is Divine Bliss. This article shall be important mainly from the perspective of prelims under the subsection Cultural History of India. Now, this particular article here highlights that Jain monks across the world are congregating at a place known as Dharmasthala in Karnataka to carry out the Mahamastabhisheka of Lord Gomteshwara. Hence, in this regard, let us understand some basic facets of this particular article from the perspective of your upcoming prelims. Now, the concept of Tirthankara holds a special relevance in Jainism, wherein Tirthankara refers to a spiritual guru of the religion, and Jainism believes that there are 24 Tirthankaras, the last being Lord Mahavira, and the first Jain Tirthankara was Lord Adinatha. So the Mahamastabhisheka is considered to be a worship of Lord Bahubali, who was considered to be a son of the first Jain Tirthankara, Adinatha. This Mahamastabhisheka is observed every 12 years, and the present Mahamastabhisheka is observed in Dharmasthala in Karnataka. However, the largest Mahamastabhisheka is held at a place known as Shravan Belgola in the Hassan district of Karnataka. Now, the statue of Lord Bahubali, also referred to as Lord Gomteshwara in Shravan Belgola, is considered to be an architecture marvel of the ancient Karnataka. This particular statue stands at a height of 57 meters and it is carved out of a single rock. Because of this, this statue is considered to be one of the world's tallest monolithic statue. And from the perspective of prelims, you need to note here that the commissioning of this particular statue was done by a person known as Chavundaraya, who was a prime minister as well as commander-in-chief of the Ganga dynasty. Further, Jainism believes in the concept of liberation, that is to escape from the continuous cycle of birth, death and rebirth. And in this regard, Jainism has put forward the concept of Ratnaraya, which means that if the Jains have to achieve liberation, then they would have to follow the three jewels. And these three jewels are right belief, right knowledge, and right conduct. Now, coming to the principles of Jainism. Now, Jainism is based upon 5 principles. Let us discuss these principles one by one. Now, Jainism believes that all living beings have soul, and the soul of the living beings is characterized by consciousness, knowledge, as well as perception. Since all the living beings have soul, Jainism believes that all the human beings have to give up violence and they should not indulge in any kind of intentional or unintentional harm to the living beings. The second principle of Jainism is the principle of Satya or that of truth. Here it is to be noted that Jainism has given preference to ahimsa over that of Satya, which means that if a person has to say the truth and if such truth may lead to violence, in such cases it is best if the person observes silence because his silence would lead to ahimsa or non-violence. The third principle is asteya, which means that one should not take anything from the others forcibly. Because of this principle of asteya, squeezing the wealth from the others or exploiting the weaker sections is considered to be a sin in Jainism. The fourth principle is that of brahmacharya, that is to exercise control over the senses and not to indulge in sexual activity. And the last principle is the principle of aparigraha, which means that a person should not get attached to people, places, or wealth and should exercise complete detachment from the worldly pleasures. So, these are the five main principles of Jainism. Now, coming to Jain literature. Now, the Jainist literature is also referred to as the Jaina Agamas, and these Agamas are based upon the teachings of Lord Mahavira. The Jaina Agamas are divided into 46 texts, which are also referred to as sutras. Further, as you all know, the Jainism has mainly two sects, these being Shvetambaras and Digambaras. Let us understand some basic differences between these two sects of Jainism. Now, with respect to Digambaras, they believe in complete austerity or a simple living, where they believe that in order to attain salvation, then they have to give up all the worldly possessions. And accordingly, Digambaras practice complete nakedness. On the other hand, Shvetambaras believe that salvation can be achieved even without giving up clothing. Hence, accordingly, Shvetambaras wear simple white clothing. And with respect to the possessions, Digambaras do not keep any kind of possessions, not even the begging bowls or the books. On the other hand, Shvetambaras are allowed to keep. Now, with respect to the images worshipped by Shvetambaras and Digambaras, Digambaras normally worship the naked images with downcast eyes. On the other hand, Shvetambaras worship those images which are richly decorated and have prominent staring eyes. And with respect to attitude towards women of these two sects, Shvetambaras believe that even women can achieve liberation. On the other hand, Digambaras believe that women cannot achieve liberation and women, in order to achieve liberation, have to be reborn as men. These are some of the basic differences between the Shvetambaras and Digambaras. So these are some of the important aspects which one must know with respect to Jainism. With this, let us now move to the next article. The next article appears in section 2 of the Hindu newspaper on page number 1. The title of the article is Decoding Wangchia's Ancient Art of Holding Water in the Mizoram's Hill Rocks. This article shall be important from the perspective of prelims under the subsection Cultural History of India. In the year 2010, the Archaeological Survey of India stumbled upon an ancient lost civilization in Mizoram. This ancient lost civilization was found in a village known as the Wangchia village, which borders Myanmar. And this civilization was dated back to around 600 BC. So when this ancient lost civilization was discovered by Archaeological Survey of India, and accordingly the Wangchia village was declared as a protected site so as to carry out a further research into this ancient civilization. Now, during the course of investigation, the Archaeological Survey of India has found out that this ancient lost civilization had adopted scientific and modern way of life. And this is evident in the various archaeological remains which have been found in the ancient lost civilization. Now, some of the archaeological remains are the remains of a footpath, rock engravings, menhirs, which actually refer to the long-standing stones, necropolis, which refers to large cemetery, as well as the man-made caves. However, the most significant aspect of this particular discovery of the lost civilization was the water harvesting system. Now, the Archaeological Survey of India has found out that the people of this lost civilization had developed a simple, effective, and a scientific method of water harvesting. In order to store the water, the people of this lost civilization used to trap the rainwater which was flowing down the slopes by making holes in the rocks. Such a technique enabled the people to store the water in the fissures as well as veins of the rocks. Because of this water harvesting system is considered to be a simple, effective, and a scientific way of storing water. Now, this becomes extremely important because due to the climate change, there's a possibility of a large scale variability in the monsoonal rainfall. Hence, accordingly, there's a need for India to focus on water harvesting systems. In this regard, it is being said that this water harvesting system used by the people in the lost civilization can be replicated across India. Hence, the adoption of such a water harvesting system, particularly in the hilly areas of India, would enable us to make an optimum use of the rainwater. So, these are some of the important aspects which one must know with respect to this particular article. With this, let us now move to the next article. Now, the next article appears on page number 16. The title of the article is Deep Sea Treasures. This article shall be important from the perspective of prelims under the subsection General Science and Technology. The study of microbial life as to how the microbes live and survive in different environment becomes extremely important for the scientist. This is because by studying the microbial life, we can arrive at certain conclusion related to the origin of life on the earth. Similarly, we can understand the process of adaptation of the microbes to the harsher environment such as the extreme cold or the hot conditions. Similarly, we can also understand as to how the life exists on the other planets. Hence, the study of microbial life provide important clues to scientists with respect to origin of life on the earth, and as well as it will help them understand as to how the life on other planets exist. Hence, in this regard, a group of scientists have used a cutting edge technology to study the deep sea microbes known as the hydrotherm archaeota. Now, these deep sea microbes live in extremely harsh environment because such an environment does not support oxygen or the sunlight. Hence, in the absence of oxygen and sunlight, these deep sea microbes obtain food through the process of chemosynthesis, which means that they obtain food through the synthesis of carbon monoxide and sulfates. Now, the study of these deep sea microbes is considered to be quite important because the genomes of these deep sea microbes are similar to the genomes of the first life forms on the earth. Hence, the scientists believe that these deep sea microbes would provide important clues related to the evolution of life on the earth. Hence, these are some of the important aspects which one must know with respect to this particular article. With this, let us now move to the next article. The next article appears on page number 17. The title of the article is What is Bedin 1? This article shall be important from the perspective of prelims under the subsection General Science and Technology. The astronomers who are using the Hubble Space Telescope have recently discovered a new galaxy known as the Bedin 1. Now, Bedin 1 has been categorized by the astronomers as a dwarf spheroidal galaxy. A dwarf spheroidal galaxy is a galaxy which is smaller in size and has a lower level of luminosity. So, if you look at the features of Bedin 1, the total extent of Bedin 1 is hardly around 3000 light years. Similarly, Bedin 1 is almost 1000 times dimmer than our Milky Way galaxy. Hence, due to the small size and the low luminosity of the Bedin 1, it has been categorized as a dwarf spheroidal galaxy. Now, the significance of this particular discovery lies in the fact that Bedin 1 is considered to be one of the oldest galaxy of the universe. And so far, Bedin 1 has remained isolated from the other galaxies. Because of this, Bedin 1 is also considered by the astronomers as a living fossil of the universe. So, with respect to your upcoming prelims, firstly you should understand as to what exactly is Bedin 1, and secondly, you should understand the definition of a dwarf spheroidal galaxy. Now, based upon our discussion, these 4 questions shall be a prelims question for the practice. Please pause this video and try to find answers to these 4 questions. We will be discussing the answer after 5 seconds. The first question here is, consider the following statements related to the earthquake swarms. The first statement is, they are low intensity earthquakes which occur in a localized region. As we have discussed, this particular statement here is correct. The second statement reads as, the earthquake swarms are always followed by the major shocks of the earthquakes. Now, as we have discussed, the earthquake swarms are not always followed by the major shocks of the earthquakes. Hence, this particular statement here is wrong. The third statement reads as, the earthquake swarms are quite common in the Himalayan region and are completely absent in the peninsular India. Now, even this particular statement here is wrong. This is because, as we have observed in the recent years, the peninsular India has witnessed a large number of earthquake swarms. Hence, accordingly, the correct answer to this particular question is A, that is one only. Now coming to second question, the question here is consider the following statements related to the convergent plate boundaries. The first statement is they are normally associated with the fold mountains. Now this particular statement here is correct. This is because if you look at the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate, the convergence of Indian plate with the Eurasian plate has led to formation of the four mountains, that is Himalayas. Similarly, the convergence of Nazca plate with the South American plate has led to formation of four mountains known as the Andes. The second statement reads as such plate boundaries do not show any kind of tectonic activity. Now this particular statement here is wrong. This is because the convergent plate boundaries normally show the tectonic activity. The third statement reads as such kind of plate interaction may lead to formation of volcanoes. Now here this particular statement is correct. This is because if you look at the nature of interaction between the Nazca plate and the South American plate, this has led to formation of Andes mountains. Apart from the formation of Andes mountains, certain volcanic peaks can also be found in the Andes. Example being the Cotopaxi peak or the volcanic peak of Chimborazo. So if you look at the convergent plate boundaries, such kind of plate interaction may lead to formation of volcanoes. So looking at the options here, the correct answer to this question is C, that is 1 and 3 only. Now coming to the third question, the question here is consider the following statements related to Jainism. The first statement is the Mahamastabhisheka is the worship of statue of the Lord Mahavira which takes place every 12 years. Now this particular statement here is wrong. This is because the Mahamastabhisheka is a worship of statue of Lord Bahubali or Lord Gomteshwara, who is the son of the first Tirthankara, Lord Adinatha. The second statement reads as both Digambaras and Shwetambaras believe that women can achieve liberation. Now this particular statement here is wrong. This is because the Digambaras believe that women cannot achieve liberation, and in order to achieve liberation, women would have to be reborn as men. The third statement reads as the Jainism gives higher preference to ahimsa or satya, and as we have discussed, this statement here is correct. So looking at the options here, the correct answer to this question is C, that is 3 only. Now coming to the fourth question. The fourth question here is in which among the following states did the Archaeological Survey of India recently discover the water harvesting system of the ancient lost civilization? And as we have discussed, this ancient lost civilization was discovered in the Wangchia village, which is located in Mizoram. Hence, the answer to this question is C. With this, we have come to end of today's discussion. Now let us look at the question for the day.